like to acknowledge this morning that we are in the traditional and unceded territories of the Nanaimo people here in Nanaimo. These people have cared for the land and are sharing their culture and their knowledge with us and walking side by side toward a better future. We want to state that we are committed to working together, and so it is. I'm here this morning with Tania Amaral, also known as Pinksy Shell. And the reason I've invited Tania this morning is, although we talk a lot, our thrust of our talks is spirituality. Spirituality and culture go so well together. And Tania is a dance teacher and advocate for African dance, African culture. What's interesting about it is rather than just promote her own particular type of dance from her own area, which is Mozambique, she's combining dance styles from North Africa, South Africa, East and West. Welcome, Tania.
Oh my gosh, Patricia, you already did such a huge, nice introduction. What can I say?
Well, start by telling us you also go by the stage name of Pinksy Shell. And that's an interesting story, how you came with that. So maybe you could share that with us to start.
So, as you already said in very well, my name is Tania. I was born and raised in Mozambique, which is in the southeast side of Africa. And Pinksy Shell actually came because when I was very young, when we used to go to the beach, me, my mom, and my dad, my sister, so we have these shells that actually also exist here in Canada that normally in English, I believe that people say dollar sand or sand a dollar.
$10, yes.
Yes, I know as pansy shell. So, and because my favorite color, I know can be a cliche sometimes, it's pink in English. So I'm like, oh yeah, that is a huge memory for my mom, for my childhood. So I combined both of the names, pansy shell with pink color, Pinksy Shell, and that's how the name was born.
And it stuck with you.
And yeah, it stuck with me. I don't think I'm gonna change. I love my birth name, of course. But that really connects me down to childhood memories and everything. So, yeah.
So you grew up in Mozambique.
Yes.
I've done a little bit of research, and I understand it's primarily a Christian country, although there are many. Can you talk a little bit about what culture was like for you growing up?
That is so interesting because actually, we have a huge community that follows Christianity, but we're also becoming bigger and bigger in the community, especially in the north, that follow Islam. So, but we always get along very well. Like, I have such a huge friends that follow Islam. My parents, actually, they grew up back in those days of colonization, of course, from the Portuguese rule, that everything was more towards Christianity, but when they had me and my sister, was right after the independence, they didn't want to put any religions for us to follow. So we always had this more, let's say, I don't want to say traditional. It's just the way that we did the things before invasions of the Arabs or before the invasions of the Europeans, that we have our own religions and our own practice and our own beliefs. So I always go more towards that, to be quite honest, that we have a huge respect for the ancestors. We have this kind of thing of trying to speak with people that already passed away, or saying the thank you, or try to meditate to talk to them in our spirituality, especially in the moments that things can be very hard and very difficult. So I'm always going more towards that than the other type of religions. But one of the things that I really admire in the people in my country is how they balance so well those traditions, those native traditions, their spirituality, the way they always did from generation to generation. But at the same time, you can see the same people, sometimes they go to a mosque, they go to a church, but they still have their own beliefs, their traditional beliefs. So they found a balance. And even among each other, like it doesn't matter which ethnic group you are from, each ethnic group have their own spirituality as well.
Yes.
But everybody understands and everybody gets along very well. So I think it's beautiful.
An example that the world needs to look to today.
Yeah, tolerance and understand that we can like different things. Not everybody has to like blue. I like
Exactly.
pink. So there you go.
And as I say, religion or spirituality and culture are so closely intertwined. So your cultural expression is dance. How did that start for you? How old were you, and what brought you to a love of dance?
Oh, wow. One of the things maybe that sometimes people from the Western world maybe don't know so much is like in African, majority of African countries, the way that we see dance is always as a language. We always use as a tool to express. So you can find us in a very early age, 3, 4, 5 years old. Of course, we're gonna watch the parents and the grandparents and the aunties and the uncles and everybody that is dancing, and we're trying to copycat that as a language. But then as we grow up, it's a tool for us to cry. It's a tool for us to smile. That's why we dance when somebody dies. We dance if somebody is born. We dance because we had good grades in school. We dance is because the boy or the girl say yes to something, you know? So it's always a way for us to communicate whatever that it's inside of us. And of course, maybe because I grew up in that environment for a very young age, I was always copying my parents dancing. But then eventually they enrolled me in a dance school. So this dance official school there is for dancers from Mozambique, and you also learn how to sing the songs from the country, and you also have the component of ballet and everything, right? But because it's so different in ballet, everything has to be don't bend the knees in this way, and the structure is very different. And for us, everything is towards the ground, and we have this relationship that is towards the gravity.
Yes.
So at some point, I was starting to have this conflict in my body as I grew up. When I was studying now professionally ballet and everything, I said no. I like it. I think it's amazing, beautiful dance, beautiful structure, technique, but I'm going towards the technique of my dances from my country and the codes of my dance in my country. And then as I started to do more the search and everything related to the dances of my country, I then started to also see that it was enough to express myself in a way, because I also like the dances from Egyptian culture. And then I grew up also listening to rhythms from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And then we have a huge influence from South Africa. So we have the rhythms from Kwaito, and now I'm a piano. So I felt that there's something that I needed to bring together so I could express myself. And that's how Afrofusion Sharky dance actually came up in 2015 when I was still living in Mozambique. So, and as I do the research, I found out that actually there is a lot of things that unite us. There is a huge relationship with the circles and the curved lines. It doesn't matter if you're from Chad or if you're from Madagascar, Tanzania. And when I started to see all these similarities, like, why not bring those diversity, but still there's so many similar aspects? Why don't bring it together and people can use the way to express? So that's like, idea.
That's wonderful, because so much of our life now is separating ourselves, defining my own culture and standing up for that. And that's great. But as you say, we have more similarities than we have differences.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking how freeing that must be to have that attitude towards dance, because in the West, we tend to, our dance is structured, it's ballet, it's done a certain way. Our music tends to be the classical symphony, which is expressing somebody else's ideas, really. So to be free to self-express, I think that probably saves a lot of mental health issues.
I always try to see the beauty in everything, to be quite honest. I think there is a beauty in that structure that people build around the ballet, or then people build around the tap and the jazz. And I also see that there is also the beauty that the people build around all these old traditional dances that you find in Algeria, or you find in Egypt. And of course, they are very different, but you can see beauty in all of that. That's why sometimes I don't see the positive part, as you already said, of trying even to compare. And as we see nowadays, it's like it's all what it's mine, and keep to mine, and yours, it's yours. No, I think there's a common ground that all of us can exist. It's just like religion. Like I can respect yours, you can respect mine, and we always can get along.
Yeah.
It's
We
it's
always say
okay.
if there's something here that resonates with you, please feel free to use it. If it doesn't, just leave it.
Just leave it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't force me to be in your side as I'm not forcing you to be on my side. Just see my side. I will see yours. We respect each other and we can move along very well. So I feel that's for sure something that we need to practice more in the new world, especially because now we can see now there's polarization. It's something that is happening a lot,
Very much
especially
so.
in the social media. And because again, when we start to have conflicts, political conflicts, and then poverty and etc., it's easy to people that they're being pushed to an edge. They feel like I don't have nothing else to lose. I don't care. But there is always something positive to be, I don't know, to reach, in a sense. Maybe
is.
that's the spirituality.
Well, sometimes we have to reach for it.
Oh,
though,
sometimes
too.
we have to reach for it, or sometimes we have to help somebody to reach as well, you know.
Exactly.
And I feel humans, we can be good.
Speaking of helping, you're involved with the Black History Month in February, as one of the organizers of that. And your goal is really to promote African culture.
Yes. So I've been doing this series that is called African Connections with Crimson Coast Dance Society here in Nanaimo, and we're gonna do another edition next year. And the idea is always around that, how we can show again this diversity, highlight this diversity. It doesn't matter if it's a program for the kids or if then it's through the dance, or we can have an event that is let's talk about it, what we call sharing is caring. So all these different events that happen in different days of the month is just in a sense to see how we can be so diverse and but also have all these similarities of the struggles or not of the struggles, and we still exist. And we still are here, and we still can be friends, and we can still get along, and
Right.
why not,
Exactly.
right? Why not?
Now, how long have you been in Canada?
So I moved with my husband to Canada in the end of 2016, December. So I think we're going to do about 7 years now. Yeah. And to Nanaimo, almost 3 years.
Now you're maybe I shouldn't say that. Having come to Canada, have you cut to the chase here? Have you actually experienced racism in Canada?
Yeah, I had one situation that, to be quite honest and fair, I think I had more situations of racism when I was living in Portugal, in Europe.
Oh.
Yeah, like the way that they do it is much more confrontational, at least at the time I was living. Now people say that it's much better, friends of mine, they're living there. But the thing that struck it to me is the racism that I encountered, for example, in Portugal was always related to work and jobs and opportunities. It's like, go back to your country, you're taking our jobs, those kind of things that people normally say into your face. But the situation that I had in here was related to fear. That was the first time that I saw that somebody was looking at me, that I was going towards her. It was a lady. And I was coming from like my running, and I had a hoodie. The typical hoodie situation.
Black girl in a hoodie.
The typical hoodie situation. But I didn't have like the hoodie even on top of my head, but it was like, I think it was kind of the fall, and of course it was cold. And you could see that she looked at me, and she immediately, like, she had this kind of stop in the street of like, what's gonna happen? And then immediately she went to the pocket and reached the cell phone. And when you're like answering the cell phone, normally you look and you're trying to, figure it out, like who's calling, and then trying to figure it out how to answer. But she like reached the phone and put it like in the ear, and then starting to talk very loud to pretend that she's talking with somebody. And I thought like, okay, maybe mental health or something like that.
Well.
I don't know, right? But she was like dressed normally as somebody. And then, okay, as soon as we crossed over, I just looked back because I thought that situation was strange. And as soon as she passed through me, she's just like, put the phone back in the pocket. So I was just like, oh, she thought maybe I was a thief. I wanted something doing with her and etc. So that was the first time that I feel like, oh, she just looked at me and she felt
Made a judgment.
yeah, made a judgment and she felt afraid. So that's the situation that really struck in my head. But besides that, nothing, like, quite honest, of being followed in the store, as a lot of times also happen in Europe. Here, nothing that really struck on my mind, to be quite honest. Yeah, that's just all.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, me too.
And
Me too.
I'm sorry there are still ladies who are afraid, but we're
Maybe
making
she had a
progress.
bad experience. I was trying to see, sometimes people behave the way they behave because also maybe something very bad happened to them and they have afraid that the situation might repeat as well. We are humans, right? We are not robots. We have emotions, and sometimes things can be very hard to people. Yeah. I try to stay positive.
Thank you for
Not
your
let nothing
understanding.
negative like it comes to my body. Like, stay positive.
You're an inspiration that you can stay grounded like that and whatever, and just demonstrate to all of us how in the face of adversity, which you may not have experienced very much here, but the littlest things that we sometimes don't think are hurtful or racist. I mean, I still catch myself having thoughts that they come from training way back that I've never even consciously thought. But these judgments and ideas go across your mind when you see people, not just people of different skin colors, but virtually we're always judging, aren't we?
We are always judged. That's one of the things I feel as I think in Christianity, like, who never did something bad, you can throw the first rock. I think every human being at some point had this thought that if you really analyze as well, like, your thought was a racist thought. You're maybe not a racism person because there's also a systemic racism thing in that it's involved. And especially if you have minority, you probably in very low in the chain, that the people that make huge decisions, and you're just gonna stay there in the bottom. But every human being, I believe, at some point had this kind of thought of looking somebody else and the judgmental situation, and then you're like, look at yourself in the mirror always before you criticize another person. And are you becoming a better human? Try to become a better human. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to ask you, was there anything you'd like to say to people? I think you just did actually try to be a better human. But anything in parting, anything else you'd like to tell us about?
Well, I think maybe because I'm an immigrant and the situation of my country related to poverty and war and things that we experience when we are very young, we learn to see the world from maybe different lens. Sometimes, of course, you can become very bitter, very, and I think it's also normal if you become bitter, if you experience things that are very negative, but I don't think that will take you forward in nothing positive. So I always try, and I always would talk with my friends and everything, like, even the situation can be very negative, but always trying to do that work on yourself in a way that, okay, how I can bring something positive out of that to not become something that is just keeping having this energy that is a heavy energy that then is just going to attract another probably heavy kind of thing.
Exactly.
So negative brings more negative in a sense. So for me, my message will be always try to be tolerant, always trying to find the positive, always trying to understand that the human being, maybe what he's been through, but be kind, love more. Love more. That's why I put in my emails lots of love. Like, we have to try to love more.
Right. We do. I just feel like I've heard the best sermon I could have given. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tania, for being with us today.
This is so nice.
For your joy, for your enthusiasm, and for your wonderful advice and for the work you're doing in the world.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thanks for being with us this morning.